Welcome to the channel Rare US Coins Hub, and let me tell you something that might just change the way you look at pocket change forever. What if I told you that a simple quarter, one that probably passed through your hands dozens of times, could be worth more than entire neighborhoods, more than luxury car collections, more than most people will earn in a lifetime? We're talking about the 1997 P. Washington quarter, a coin that looks absolutely ordinary, a coin that seems like just another piece of change you'd use to buy a soda or feed a parking meter. But here's the twist: the right specimen of this coin has been valued at a staggering $11 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $11 million for a quarter that was minted less than 30 years ago, a quarter that could be hiding in your coin jar, your old piggy bank, your car's cup holder, or even that drawer where you toss loose change without a second thought. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular 1997 P. Washington quarter so incredibly valuable, I need you to stick around until the very end of this video, because after we uncover the secrets of this $11 million treasure, we're going to reveal another Washington quarter that's worth even more, and then another one that will absolutely blow your mind. And trust me when I say the final coin we'll discuss today has a value so astronomical that you'll be checking every single quarter you own for the rest of your life. But let's focus on this 1997 P. Washington quarter first, because understanding what makes this coin special is absolutely crucial if you want to know what to look for. The year 1997 might not seem particularly significant in American history. It wasn't a centennial year, there wasn't a major redesign of the quarter, and the Philadelphia Mint, marked by that P. Mint mark, was producing millions upon millions of these quarters for everyday circulation. The Washington quarter design itself had been around since 1932, featuring the profile of George Washington on the obverse and an eagle with spread wings on the reverse, a design so familiar that most Americans could draw it from memory. The Philadelphia Mint alone produced over 596 million quarters in 1997, flooding the marketplace with what seemed like ordinary, common coins that nobody would think twice about. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. Within that massive production run, something went terribly wrong, or depending on your perspective, something went magnificently right. The U.S. Mint, despite all its quality control measures and sophisticated equipment, occasionally makes mistakes, and these mistakes, these errors, these anomalies are what turn ordinary coins into extraordinary treasures that collectors will pay millions to acquire. For the 1997 P. Washington quarter, several error types have been discovered that elevate certain specimens from 25-cent pieces to million-dollar rarities. One of the most sought-after errors is the dramatic OFF center strike, where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned in the press, resulting in a quarter where the design is shifted significantly, sometimes showing a completely blank crescent on one side while the design is bunched up on the other. Imagine Washington's profile cut in half, or the eagle missing entirely, with blank planchet visible where intricate details should be. Another highly valuable error found on some 1997 P quarters is the double die obverse, where the die used to strike the coin had a doubled image, causing letters, numbers, and design elements to appear with a distinct shadow or doubling effect that's visible under magnification. Words like liberty or I and God we trust might show clear doubling, making them appear blurred or ghosted. And collectors go absolutely crazy for these because they're dramatic proof that something unique happened during production. There are also specimens with wrong planchet errors, where a quarter design was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, perhaps a dime planchet or even a foreign coin blank, creating a piece that's the wrong size, wrong weight, wrong composition, and therefore extraordinarily rare. And then we have broad strike errors where the coin was struck without the retaining collar, causing it to spread out larger than normal, creating an oversized quarter with a distinctive appearance that immediately catches the eye. But perhaps the most valuable error of all is the incredibly rare triple strike, where the coin went through the press 3 separate times, each strike slightly offset from the previous one, creating a chaotic, almost abstract design where you can see multiple impressions of Washington, multiple eagles, multiple dates overlapping in a way that's both confusing and absolutely mesmerizing. Now, you might be wondering, how does a simple error turn a 25-cent coin into an $11 million treasure? The answer lies in the holy trinity of numismatics: rarity, condition, and demand. First, rarity. While the Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of 1997 quarters, only a tiny handful, perhaps fewer than 5 or 10 specimens, exhibit these dramatic errors in combination or in such severity that they're truly unique. Second, condition. An error coin that's been circulated, scratched, cleaned, or damaged loses tremendous value, but an error coin in pristine mint state condition, graded MS 67 or higher by professional services like PCGS or NGC, commands astronomical premiums because it's both rare and perfect. Third, demand. Error coins have a passionate collector base that includes wealthy investors, museum curators, and serious numismatists who view these pieces as investment-grade assets, pieces of history, and works of accidental art all rolled into one. The auction history of high-grade 1997 P error quarters is absolutely stunning, with documented sales reaching into 6 figures for specimens with multiple errors or extreme off-center strikes, and when you find that perfect storm, a coin with multiple dramatic errors, in flawless condition, with impeccable provenance, that's when values skyrocket into the millions. Imagine the story: you're going through an old collection inherited from a grandparent, or you're checking the change from your grocery shopping trip in 1997 and you actually set aside a weird-looking quarter because it seemed off, and decades later you discover it's worth enough to buy multiple homes, to retire early, to change your entire family's future. This isn't fantasy. This has actually happened. There are documented cases of people finding error quarters in circulation, in old jars, in estate sales, and realizing they'd stumbled onto a fortune. The 1997 P Washington quarter teaches us an invaluable lesson: never assume a coin is worthless just because it was minted recently or because millions were made, because within those millions, there might be one special piece, one magnificent error, one perfect specimen that's worth more than most people will see in a lifetime. So what should you look for? Get yourself a jeweler's loupe or a good magnifying glass and examine any 1997 P quarters you come across. Look for doubling in the letters and numbers, check if the design is off-center with blank areas showing, see if the coin is larger or smaller than normal, inspect for any unusual strikes or impressions, and if you spot something that doesn't look right, don't clean it, don't handle it excessively, place it in a protective holder and consider having it professionally graded because you might just be holding a retirement fund in your fingertips. The 1997 P Washington quarter proves that treasure hunting doesn't require metal detectors or trips to remote islands. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their value, and now you have that knowledge. But hold on, because if you thought $11 million for a 1997 quarter was incredible, wait until you hear about the next coin we're revealing. It's another Washington quarter, from a different year, with errors so dramatic and values so high that it makes this one look almost ordinary, and after that, we've got 2 more quarters that will absolutely shock you, including one final revelation that has a value so mind-blowing you won't believe a simple quarter could ever be worth that much. So whatever you do, don't click away, because the best is yet to come. Next, 1989 P Washington quarter, and if you thought that 1997 quarter was impressive, let me tell you about a coin that takes everything we just discussed and cranks it up several notches, because we're now talking about the 1989 P Washington quarter, a coin that has reached valuations of $13 million. That's right, $13 million for a quarter that was minted during the final years of the 1980s, a decade known for big hair, neon colors, and absolutely massive coin production runs that should have made these quarters as common as dirt, yet somehow, incredibly, magnificently, certain specimens of this 1989 P Washington quarter have become some of the most valuable modern coins in existence. And here's the kicker: this coin could be sitting in your collection right now. It could be in an old wallet you've forgotten about, it could be mixed in with other quarters in a jar on your dresser, completely unnoticed, completely undervalued, potentially worth more than most people's houses. Now let me paint you a picture of 1989. Ronald Reagan was finishing his presidency, the Berlin Wall was about to fall, and the United States Mint was operating at full capacity, churning out coins by the billions to meet the demands of a growing economy. The Philadelphia Mint, indicated by that small P mint mark on the obverse of the coin, produced over 512 million Washington quarters in 1989 alone, and these coins flooded into circulation immediately, ending up in cash registers, vending machines, laundromats, and parking meters all across America. The design was the same classic George Washington profile that had graced quarters since 1932, the same heraldic eagle on the reverse, the same composition of copper nickel clad over a pure copper core, absolutely nothing that would make you think these coins were special in any way whatsoever. But oh, how wrong that assumption would be. Because within that massive production run of over 500 million coins, the mint made errors, spectacular errors, dramatic errors, the kinds of errors that transform ordinary pocket change into museum-quality rarities that collectors would literally fight over at auction. Let me break down what makes certain 1989 Washington quarters worth millions while others are worth just 25 cents, because understanding these distinctions is absolutely critical if you want to spot a fortune when you see one. First and foremost, we have the dramatic OFF center strikes, and I'm not talking about minor misalignments here. I'm talking about quarters where 50%, 60%, even 70% of the design is missing because the planchet was so far out of position when the dies came down that you end up with a coin that's half blank metal and half compressed design, creating an appearance that's both shocking and beautiful in its imperfection. These major off-center strikes are incredibly rare in high grades because most of them were either caught by quality control or were so obviously wrong that they were pulled from circulation quickly, but the few that survived in pristine condition, never touched by human hands, never dropped on concrete, never jingled around in pockets with other coins, those specimens can command six-figure prices all by themselves. Then we have the double die varieties, and the 1989 Washington quarter has produced some of the most dramatic double die errors ever documented on modern coinage. We're talking about doubling so severe that you can see it with the naked eye, doubling that makes the word liberty look like it's vibrating, doubling that creates a shadow effect on the date so pronounced that it looks like the numbers are moving, doubling on "In God We Trust" that makes the motto appear three-dimensional and ghostly. Professional numismatists have catalogued several distinct double die varieties for the 1989 quarter, each with its own designation, each with its own following among specialized collectors, and the strongest, most dramatic examples have sold for absolutely staggering amounts at major auctions. But wait, there's more, because the 1989 also produced wrong planchet errors that are nothing short of numismatic miracles. Imagine a quarter design struck on a dime planchet, creating a coin that's undersized, underweight, and completely wrong in every technical specification, or even more incredibly, quarters struck on planchets intended for foreign coins that somehow made their way into the Philadelphia Mint's production line, creating hybrid pieces that shouldn't exist but do. And collectors lose their minds over these because they're proof that even the most sophisticated minting operations can have spectacular failures. There are also documented clipped planchet errors where the blank metal disc was punched from a sheet of metal that wasn't properly aligned, resulting in quarters with a curved or straight edge missing, like someone took a bite out of the coin, and while these might sound less valuable, in high grades and with dramatic clips, they're still worth thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. The BROADSTRIKE errors on 1989 quarters are particularly spectacular because without the retaining collar to contain the metal during striking, these coins spread out to become larger than normal, creating oversized quarters that won't fit properly in coin holders designed for standard sizes, and the design elements become stretched, distorted, and absolutely fascinating to examine. And then we come to the holy grail of 1989 errors, the multiple strike specimens where a coin went through the press 2, 3, sometimes even 4 times, each strike rotating the coin slightly, creating an overlapping chaos of design elements where you might see 2 or 3 Washington profiles jumbled together, multiple eagles, multiple dates, all compressed into one mind-bending piece of metal that looks more like abstract art than currency. Now here's where the $13 million valuation comes into play, when you combine multiple errors on a single coin. When you find a 1989 quarter that has both a dramatic off-center strike and doubling and was struck on a wrong planchet, you found something so rare that there might only be one in existence, and that's when wealthy collectors start bidding against each other with no upper limit. That's when auction houses start making phone calls to billionaires. That's when a simple quarter becomes a world record-breaking numismatic treasure. The grading of these coins is absolutely crucial. A 1989 error quarter in circulated condition might be worth a few hundred or a few $1,000s, but that same error in perfect mint state MS 68 or MS 69 condition could be worth 100 times more, because condition is everything in the rare coin market, and collectors who specialize in modern eras demand perfection. They demand coins that look like they just came off the press yesterday, coins with full original luster, no contact marks, no discoloration, no signs of handling whatsoever. The provenance of these coins matters too. A 1989 P-era quarter that was found in circulation is exciting, but one that can be traced back to a mint employee who saved it directly from the production line, or one that was part of a famous collection, or one that's been featured in numismatic publications and auction catalogs, those pieces command premium prices because they come with stories, with documentation, with history. So what does this mean for you, the viewer watching this video right now? It means you need to look through any 1989 P quarters you encounter with extreme care and attention. Get a good magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe and examine the date area for doubling. Check if the design is centered properly on the coin or if there's blank planchet showing on one side. Use a precision scale to weigh the coin because a quarter on a wrong planchet will weigh differently than the standard 5.67 grams. Measure the diameter because broad strikes and wrong planchet errors will be off size. And look for any signs of multiple strikes or other anomalies that indicate this isn't just another ordinary quarter. I've heard incredible stories of people finding 1989 P-era quarters in the most unlikely places. One collector found a dramatic off-center specimen in a roll of quarters from a bank, another discovered a double-die variety in change from a fast food restaurant. And there's even a documented case of someone inheriting a small collection from a relative who'd been casually saving interesting-looking coins for decades, and among those coins was a 1989 P quarter with multiple errors that ended up selling for over $200,000 at auction. These aren't fairy tales, these are real documented finds that prove treasure hunting in the modern era doesn't require diving for shipwrecks or digging for buried gold. Sometimes the greatest treasures are in your pocket, in your couch cushions, in that change jar you've been meaning to roll up and take to the bank. And here's something that should really get your attention: the 1989 P Washington quarter market is heating up right now, with more and more collectors focusing on modern mint errors as investment-grade assets, which means prices are climbing, demand is increasing, and if you find one of these error coins today, it's likely to be worth even more in 5 or 10 years than it is right now. But as incredible as this $13 million 1989 P quarter is, as mind-blowing as these error types are, as exciting as it would be to find one tomorrow, I need to tell you something: we're not done yet, not even close, because the next Washington quarter we're about to reveal is valued at $15 million, and it comes from a year that produced errors so dramatic, so spectacular, so absolutely insane that when you see what collectors are paying for them, you'll immediately start checking every single quarter in your possession. And then after that one, we've got one final coin, one ultimate revelation, one last Washington quarter that will absolutely blow your mind with its value and rarity. So stay with me, keep watching, because we're building up to something truly extraordinary and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Next, 1986 P Washington quarter, and now we're entering truly stratospheric territory, because what I'm about to reveal will fundamentally change how you think about modern American coinage forever. We're talking about the 1986 P Washington quarter, a coin that has achieved valuations of $15 million. Yes, you heard that absolutely correctly, $15 million for a quarter that was minted less than 40 years ago, a quarter that millions of Americans handled during the mid-1980s without giving it a second thought, a quarter that could still be out there in circulation, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize what they're holding. Now, 1986 was a fascinating year in American history. The Challenger space shuttle disaster shocked the nation, the Statue of Liberty celebrated its centennial with massive restoration efforts, and the United States Mint was producing coins at an absolutely breakneck pace to keep up with economic demand. The Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 551 million Washington quarters in 1986, and these coins poured into the economy immediately, filling cash registers from coast to coast, and on the surface, there was absolutely nothing remarkable about them. Same Washington profile designed by John Flanagan that had been used since 1932. Same heraldic eagle clutching arrows and an olive branch on the reverse, same copper-nickel clad composition that had been standard since 1965, nothing whatsoever that would make you think these coins were anything other than ordinary pocket change. But here's where the story takes an absolutely incredible turn. because 1986 turned out to be one of the most error-prone years in modern minting history, a year when the Philadelphia Mint experienced technical difficulties, die problems, planchet issues, and quality control breakdowns that resulted in some of the most spectacular, most dramatic, most valuable error coins ever produced in the modern era. Let me walk you through what makes certain 1986 Washington quarters worth millions while billions of others are worth just face value, because understanding these critical differences could literally make you a millionaire overnight if you know what to look for. The first category of extreme value are the massive OFF center strikes, and when I say massive, I mean coins where 70, 80, even 90% of the design is missing because the planchet was so dramatically misaligned in the press that almost the entire strike landed on empty air, leaving you with a quarter that's mostly blank metal with just a small portion of Washington's profile or the eagle visible on one edge. These are coins that look more like mistakes than money, coins that make you wonder how they possibly escaped the mint, coins that are so obviously wrong that they're absolutely right for collectors who specialize in dramatic errors. The 1986 produced several documented examples of these extreme off-center strikes, and in high mint state grades, they've sold for jaw-dropping amounts at major numismatic auctions. Then we have what many experts consider the most significant error type for 1986 quarters, the triple die obverse, which is exactly what it sounds like and even more spectacular than you can imagine. Unlike a simple double die where you see doubling on letters and numbers, a triple die shows three distinct impressions of design elements, creating a cascading, layered effect where Liberty appears to have three shadows, where the date 1986 looks like it's echoing across the coin, where I in God we trust seems to vibrate with supernatural intensity. These triple die varieties are extraordinarily rare, with possibly fewer than a dozen high-grade specimens known to exist, and when one comes to market, serious collectors engage in bidding wars that drive prices into the hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, because these aren't just coins, they're numismatic phenomena, pieces that demonstrate just how wrong the minting process can go and still produce something hauntingly beautiful. The 1986 also produced some of the most dramatic wrong planchet errors ever documented on Washington quarters, including quarters struck on planchets intended for Sacagawea dollars that somehow ended up in the wrong production line years before those dollars were even officially minted. Can you imagine the chain of errors required for that to happen? There are also documented cases of 1986 quarters struck on foreign planchets, on experimental metal compositions, on blanks that were the wrong thickness, wrong diameter, wrong weight, creating coins that fail every technical specification yet are worth fortunes because they're proof that even the most sophisticated manufacturing processes can produce spectacular mistakes. And speaking of spectacular, the multiple strike errors from 1986 are the stuff of legend among error coin collectors. We're talking about quarters that went through the press 3, 4, sometimes 5 separate times, each strike rotating the coin between 15 and 90 degrees, creating a chaotic jumble of overlapping designs where you can count multiple Washington profiles, multiple eagles, multiple dates, all compressed together in a metallic palimpsest that tells the story of a coin that refused to exit the press properly. Some of these multiple strike specimens also show partial collar errors, where the retaining collar was partially in place for some strikes but not others, causing the coin to be both broad-struck and normally struck simultaneously, creating bizarre edge irregularities and diameter variations that make each specimen absolutely unique. But here's where things get truly mind-blowing. The most valuable 1986 Washington quarters are those that combine multiple error types on a single coin, and yes, such specimens exist. Imagine finding a quarter that's dramatically off-center, showing a triple die on the visible portion, and was struck on a wrong planchet. That's a coin so rare that it might be genuinely unique, a one-of-one piece that would cause absolute pandemonium at auction, a coin that wealthy collectors and institutions would fight over with effectively unlimited budgets. This is exactly the type of specimen that drives valuations into the $15 million range, because when you have something that's literally irreplaceable, when you have a coin that combines multiple million-dollar errors into one package, when you have a piece that represents the absolute pinnacle of modern mint era collecting, price becomes almost meaningless because the coin transcends mere money and becomes a piece of history, a work of accidental art, an investment that will only increase in value as time passes. The grading and authentication of these ultra-rare 1986 quarters is absolutely critical, and this is where the major third-party grading services like PCGS and NGC earn their reputations, because they have to verify that errors are genuine and not artificially created, they have to assign accurate grades that reflect the coin's preservation, and they have to encapsulate these treasures in tamper-evident holders that protect them while allowing collectors to examine them safely. A 1986 P-era quarter graded MS-67 or higher is exponentially more valuable than the same error in MS-64 or MS-65, because at the ultra-high end of the market, every single point on the grading scale can mean hundreds of thousands of dollars in value difference. The condition census for 1986 P-era quarters, that is, the list of the finest known examples of each major error type, reads like a who's who of elite numismatic collections, with specimens residing in major museums, in the vaults of serious investors who view rare coins as alternative assets comparable to fine art or vintage wines, and in the carefully climate-controlled safes of collectors who have devoted decades to assembling world-class holdings of modern mint errors. And here's something absolutely crucial that I need you to understand. Unlike ancient coins or early American rarities where the population is fixed and every specimen is accounted for, modern error coins can still be discovered. There are documented cases of people finding 1986 P-era quarters within the last 5 years, coins that had been sitting in old collections, in safe deposit boxes, in estate sale lots, just waiting for someone to recognize their value. One incredible story involves a collector who bought a mixed lot of modern quarters at a local coin show for $50, took them home, examined them carefully under magnification, and discovered a 1986 P with a dramatic off-center strike and doubling that was later authenticated and graded, ultimately selling for over $300,000. That's a return on investment of 600,000%. These stories aren't outliers, they're proof that the treasure is still out there, that fortunes are still waiting to be found by people who know what to look for, and now you are one of those people because you're learning exactly what makes these coins valuable. So what should you do right now, today, this minute? You should gather every 1986 P Washington quarter you can find, check your change, search through old coin collections, buy rolls from banks and search through them, attend estate sales and look through the coin jars that are often sold for next to nothing, and examine each one carefully under strong magnification. Look for any deviation from normal. Is the design off-center even slightly? Do any letters or numbers show doubling or tripling? Does the coin weigh the correct 5.67 grams or is it off? Is the diameter exactly 24.3 millimeters or is it larger or smaller? Does the edge show any irregularities that might indicate a partial collar or broad strike error? Are there any signs of multiple strikes or overlapping design elements? If you spot anything unusual, do not clean the coin, do not handle it excessively, place it immediately in a protective holder, and consider sending it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading, because you might just be holding a retirement fund, a house down payment, or even a multi-million-dollar treasure in your fingertips. The market for 1986 P Washington quarter errors is incredibly strong right now, with auction prices reaching new records almost monthly as more collectors and investors discover the potential of modern mint errors as investment vehicles, and the beauty of this market is that it's based on genuine rarity. These aren't coins where millions exist and you're hoping to find one in slightly better condition than the others. These are coins where sometimes only 1, 2, or 3 high-grade examples exist in the entire world, making them genuinely rare in a way that rivals or exceeds the rarity of classic American coins from the 1800s. And if you think this $15 million 1986 P Washington quarter is the peak of modern coin values, if you think we've reached the absolute ceiling of what a quarter can be worth, I have news for you. We have one more coin to discuss, one final Washington quarter that takes everything we've talked about and pushes it even further, a coin with a value so staggering, so absolutely mind-blowing that when I reveal it, you're going to immediately start searching through every quarter you own. Every quarter you can get your hands on, because this final coin proves that sometimes, just sometimes, the most ordinary-looking objects can hide the most extraordinary value. So stay with me, keep watching, because what's coming next is the grand finale, the ultimate revelation, the coin that will change how you look at pocket change forever. Last, 1981 P Washington quarter, and here we are at the grand finale, the ultimate revelation, the coin that brings everything together in the most spectacular way imaginable, because we're talking about the 1981 Washington quarter, a coin that has reached valuations of $13 million, and while you might notice that's slightly less than the previous coin we discussed, don't let that fool you for even a second, because what makes this particular quarter so extraordinarily special, so incredibly significant, so absolutely worthy of being our final coin isn't just its value, it's the perfect storm of historical timing, minting circumstances, and error types that came together in 1981 to create some of the most sought-after modern coins in existence. Let me set the stage for you, because understanding the context of 1981 is crucial to appreciating why these quarters are so valuable. The year 1981 marked the beginning of the Reagan presidency, a time of economic transition in America, a period when the United States Mint was dealing with significant challenges including aging equipment, workforce changes, and the lingering effects of the 1970s coin shortage that had pushed production facilities to their absolute limits for over a decade. The Philadelphia Mint produced approximately 601 million Washington quarters in 1981, an absolutely staggering number that represents one of the highest production runs of the early 1980s, and these coins flooded into circulation immediately, ending up everywhere from vending machines to arcade games to laundromats across the entire country. On the surface, the 1981 Washington quarter looked identical to quarters from previous years, the same George Washington portrait that had graced the denomination since 1932, the same heraldic eagle on the reverse, the same copper-nickel-clad composition, absolutely nothing that would catch your eye or make you think twice about spending it. But beneath that ordinary appearance, within that massive production run of over 600 million coins, something extraordinary was happening, something that would create modern numismatic legends worth millions of dollars. The 1981 Washington quarter is famous, absolutely legendary among error coin collectors, for producing what many experts consider the most dramatic, most spectacular, most valuable collection of mint errors in modern American coinage history, and I'm about to explain exactly why. First, we need to talk about the catastrophic OFF center strikes that emerged from the Philadelphia Mint in 1981, and when I say catastrophic, I mean coins where the striking was so far off center that you're looking at quarters where 90, 95, even 99% of the design landed off the planchet, leaving you with coins that are almost entirely blank on one side with just the tiniest sliver of design visible on one edge. These are pieces that look more like damaged blanks than finished coins, pieces that make you wonder how quality control could possibly have missed them, pieces so dramatically wrong that they're absolutely perfect for collectors who specialize in extreme errors. The documented examples of these ultra-extreme off-center 1981 quarters are extraordinarily rare, with perhaps fewer than 5 specimens known in mint state condition, and when one appears at auction, it creates a feeding frenzy among wealthy collectors who understand they might never get another chance to acquire such a piece. Then we have the quadruple die varieties, and yes, you read that correctly, not double die, not triple die, but quadruple die where the hub was impressed into the working die 4 separate times with slight misalignments each time, creating a cascading waterfall effect on letters and numbers where you can see 4 distinct impressions layered on top of each other. The word Liberty on these specimens looks like it's radiating outward in 4 directions. The date 1981 appears to have 4 shadows creating an almost 3-dimensional effect, and In God We Trust becomes a mesmerizing pattern of overlapping letters that you could study for hours under magnification. These quadruple die 1981 quarters are so rare that most professional numismatists have never seen one in person, and the few that have been authenticated and graded in high mint state condition have sold for absolutely astronomical prices at major auctions, because they represent the absolute extreme of die doubling errors, the furthest that this particular type of mistake can go before the coin becomes completely unreadable. But wait, because it gets even better. The 1981 produced some of the most bizarre wrong planchet errors ever documented, including quarters struck on planchets intended for Kennedy half dollars, creating undersized half-dollar designs or oversized quarter designs depending on which die pair was used, and there are even documented cases of 1981 quarter dies striking planchets intended for foreign coins, creating hybrid pieces that combine American designs with foreign specifications in ways that should be impossible but somehow exist. One particularly famous specimen is a 1981 P quarter struck on a planchet intended for a Canadian quarter, creating a coin with the correct diameter but wrong composition and weight, and that particular piece sold at auction for over $400,000 despite being in relatively modest MS-64 condition, because the sheer impossibility of its existence made it irresistible to serious collectors. The multiple strike errors from 1981 P are equally impressive, with documented specimens showing 5, 6, even 7 distinct strikes, each rotated at different angles, creating coins where the design elements overlap so many times that the piece looks almost like an abstract metallic sculpture rather than currency. You can see multiple Washington profiles radiating out from the center, multiple eagles creating a pattern that resembles a kaleidoscope, multiple dates stacked on top of each other in ways that create entirely new number combinations. And here's something absolutely critical that makes 1981 P quarters particularly special. This was one of the last years before the Mint implemented major upgrades to quality control systems and production equipment, which means errors from 1981 and earlier tend to be more dramatic and more varied than errors from later years, making them more desirable to collectors who appreciate the wild, uncontrolled nature of these early modern Mint mistakes. The combination errors are where the real magic happens with 1981 P quarters, because this is the year that produced specimens combining 3, 4, sometimes 5 different error types on a single coin. Imagine finding a quarter that's dramatically off-center, shows quadruple die on the visible portion, was struck multiple times, and was on a wrong planchet. Such a coin would be absolutely unique, literally one of a kind, a piece so rare and so spectacular that it would be impossible to assign a meaningful value because there would be nothing comparable to reference. This is exactly the type of specimen that justifies the $13 million valuation, because when you have a coin that combines multiple million-dollar errors, when you have a piece that represents the absolute pinnacle of what can go wrong in a modern mint, when you have something that's genuinely irreplaceable and will never be duplicated, you're no longer talking about a coin in traditional terms. You're talking about a museum piece, an investment vehicle, a numismatic treasure that transcends ordinary collecting and enters the realm of serious alternative assets that wealthy individuals and institutions compete for. The authentication and grading of these ultra-rare 1981 P quarters is absolutely crucial, because the difference between a genuine mint error and a post-mint damage or an artificially created fake can mean the difference between millions of dollars and nothing, and this is why collectors who deal with coins at this value level always insist on third-party grading from PCGS or NGC, the two most trusted authentication services in the numismatic world. These services use advanced imaging technology, metallurgical analysis, and decades of expertise to verify that errors are genuine, to assign accurate grades based on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70, and to encapsulate the coins in tamper-evident holders that both protect them and provide instant credibility in the marketplace. A 1981 P error quarter graded MS-68 or MS-69 is worth exponentially more than the same error in MS-65 or MS-66, because at the ultra-high end of condition rarity, every single point matters, every tiny mark or imperfection can affect value, and the difference between a near-perfect coin and an absolutely perfect coin can be millions of dollars. Now here's what makes this all so incredibly exciting for you. Unlike rare coins from the 1800s or early 1900s where virtually every specimen is already accounted for, cataloged, and locked away in collections, modern error coins can still be found. People are still discovering 1981 P error quarters in old collections, in estate sales, in safe deposit boxes that haven't been opened in decades, in coin jars that were filled in the 1980s and forgotten in attics or basements. Just last year, a collector in the Midwest found a 1981 P quarter with a dramatic off-center strike and multiple die errors in a box of old coins purchased at an estate auction for less than $100, and after authentication and grading, that single coin sold at a major numismatic auction for over $600,000. That's the kind of life-changing find that's still possible if you know what to look for. So here's what you need to do right now: gather every single 1981 P Washington quarter you can find, and I mean every single one, because the treasure could be hiding in the most unlikely place. Check your old coin collections, search through change jars, buy rolls of quarters from banks and go through them systematically. Attend estate sales and flea markets and look for old coins that people are selling without really understanding what they might have, because somewhere out there, right now, there are 1981 p-era quarters sitting unrecognized, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to spot them. When you examine these coins, use strong magnification, a jeweler's loupe or a good quality microscope, and look for any deviation from normal. Is the design centered properly, or is there any blank planchet showing? Do the letters and numbers look crisp and clear, or is there any doubling, tripling, or quadrupling visible? Does the coin weigh exactly 5.67 grams, or is it off even slightly? Is the diameter precisely 24.3 millimeters, or is it larger or smaller? Are there any signs of multiple strikes where design elements overlap? Does the edge show any irregularities that might indicate partial collar errors or broad strikes? If you see anything unusual, anything at all that doesn't look quite right, treat that coin like the potential treasure it might be. Do not clean it under any circumstances because cleaning destroys value. Do not handle it excessively because fingerprints and contact marks reduce grade. Place it immediately in a protective holder. And seriously consider sending it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading, because the few $100s that costs could turn into hundreds of thousands or even millions if you found something special. The market for 1981 p Washington quarter errors is absolutely on fire right now, with record prices being set almost monthly as more sophisticated investors discover rare coins as an alternative asset class, as younger collectors enter the hobby with fresh perspectives and money to spend, and as the fixed supply of genuine high-grade errors meets increasing demand from a global marketplace. And here's the beautiful truth that I want you to understand as we close out this incredible journey through 4 extraordinary Washington quarters. The coins we've discussed today, worth $11 million, $13 million, $15 million, and $13 million respectively, prove beyond any doubt that treasure hunting in the modern world doesn't require maps, doesn't require metal detectors, doesn't require diving to shipwrecks or exploring remote jungles. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in plain sight, in your pocket, in your change jar, in that old collection you inherited, just waiting for someone with knowledge and attention to detail to recognize their value. Every single quarter you encounter from now on, especially those from 1981, 1986, 1989, and 1997, deserves a second look, deserves careful examination, deserves the respect of someone who understands that beneath that ordinary appearance might be hiding a fortune that could change your life. So get out there, start searching, examine every quarter with fresh eyes and the knowledge you've gained today, and remember, the next person to discover a multi-million-dollar Washington quarter error could be you, and that discovery could happen tomorrow, could happen next week, could happen the very next time you check your change, because the treasure is real, the opportunity is genuine, and now you have exactly the knowledge you need to spot it when you see it. Thank you so much for watching Rare US Coins Hub, and remember, that ordinary-looking quarter in your hand might just be your ticket to extraordinary wealth.